Hello. So today I wanted to make a video about how to develop a good level in conversation, a good conversational level in your target language, or even if you already have a good level, how you can get better. How can you move forward and become a better conversationalist in the language that you're learning? I believe that the tips that I'm about to give will be helpful for everyone, whether you're starting out or whether you're at an intermediate level or even beyond. Well, the first thing is it will be helpful to have a conversation partner. And initially, basically, it can be perhaps someone who will teach you the language as well. It can be a teacher, it can be a tutor, it can be a language tutor, either online or in person. Many people prefer in person first, just to have the warmth of the face to face, and basically can. But I personally think that online is quite great as well for tutoring, for languages and everything else. And of course, ideally, you're going to be finding a tutor or a language partner that you enjoy working with, right? Sometimes I've come across students that have told me like, oh, I had this language tutor, but didn't really like working with him or her. It could be because of the method or whatever. Something wasn't compatible. And in that case, it's just like, well, may as well look for someone else, right? It doesn't have to be a tutor or a teacher. You can also have basically a language exchange partner, perhaps someone who speaks the language that you are trying to learn fluently and who wants to learn your language, right? Hopefully, there won't be that much a disconnect in terms of understanding, right? Because I remember actually having a conversation partner or a language exchange partner for Italian, and her English was at a very low level, and so was my Italian back then. So it was it was a bit frustrating because getting the point across was a bit hard. And until like I reached a decent level in Italian, and she was also progressing in English, it was kind of interesting. And eventually it was good, but until then it was a bit stressful. So you want someone who can, so you can communicate with. Anyway, so aside from that, I usually do this exercise that I find really helps me with conversation, which is I really love trying to write down, and normally have a notebook or even like an online notebook. I use Evernote, which it's a software that I really like, and I try to write down things that I want to learn how to say in my target language, that I find will be useful in conversation. Perhaps it could be a specific idea that I often like to share. I don't know. And then I get that either translated into my target language, or perhaps, like the whole list of things that I have translated into my target language, and then I'll study those things carefully. Some people will straight up memorize these phrases, and which is, I guess, okay at the beginning, but eventually, of course, you also want to create, of course, variations of those phrases, understand the structure of the phrases, and so on. But initially, it doesn't hurt to just like really try to learn the content directly. And another thing that I like to do is just basically you can even record a conversation in your mother language with a friend of yours, and later listen to it, and hopefully you will have your friend's consent. Otherwise, that's a little bit iffy. And later you listen to that conversation and you take note of the things that you said that you want to learn in your target language. And you also get that translated either by, you can actually get translations online on websites like Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, or you can get your tutor or teacher to translate those things into your target language and study them. If you do get a translation done through a website, just make sure, of course, that you're getting a good translator, right? Someone who has, most of these websites, they will have specific translators with ratings. So you want someone who has like a lot of stars, close to 5 stars as you buy their service. And so I think that that's a neat way to get a little bit ahead in your conversational level, essentially like focusing on learning things that you want to say, that you want to express. Sometimes I catch myself thinking like, oh, how do I say this in Chinese? How do I say this in Russian? And if I don't know how to express it, I'll try to write that down and I'll try to get someone to translate that later. So that way I'll be making progress in my conversational level in whatever languages that I'm trying to learn. And ideally, you're going to be doing that a little bit often. Perhaps you can even sit down, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes every couple of days and brainstorm for things that you want to learn how to express in your target language. And I would argue that you can even go a bit ahead and not worry about how difficult these things are. So some people will be too conscious of like, oh, maybe, this idea that I want to express is just too advanced for my level. But give it a try anyway. It won't hurt to just have that phrase ready. And with this whole translation thing, I essentially even go as far as writing a lot of content down in English. And sometimes it's just pages of content, perhaps like, I don't know, a story of something that happened to me that I normally tell my friends, something funny. I don't know, it could be a story of something that happened in a coffee shop, something that I found humorous, and then I get that whole story translated in my target language and I study it carefully. So I think that can help quite a bit as we to improve our conversational level. And of course, the last thing is obviously we want to do listening, right? We want to listen to the target language. It's something that we should always be trying to. We should always strive to improve our listening, and ideally with text, like I always say. If you have text and audio, you can always just study that, right? And if you miss something with the audio, you can later try to check out the text and learn new vocabulary accordingly. That way, if you improve your listening, you can have, of course, better conversations, because if you're having a conversation and you can't understand what the other person's saying, that can be a problem. So listening, of course, is helpful. There you go. I hope that you guys have enjoyed my thoughts, and feel free to comment on them. Good luck, my friends.